Hi, and welcome to this Now Maths Revise Now video on using the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula allows us to solve any equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 using the formula x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared subtract 4ac all over 2a. In this video, we'll focus specifically on using equations in this form, and we will use a calculator to obtain our solutions. Let's get straight into our first example. So for this question, we're going to solve 2x squared, add 7x, add 3 equals 0. We know we can definitely use the quadratic formula to solve this equation since it's a quadratic and the right-hand side of our equation is already 0. The first thing we need to do in order to use the quadratic formula is find our values of a, b and c. So in this case, a is the x squared coefficient, which is 2, b is the x coefficient, which is 7, and c is the constant, which is 3. We'll then make sure we have the quadratic formula in front of us, and then we're going to pick up our values of a, b and c and substitute them into the values of a, b and c in the quadratic formula. So we'll write down that in this case x is equal to negative b, which for us is going to be negative 7, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which for us is 7 squared, subtract 4, multiplied by a, which is 2, multiplied by c, which is 3. And the whole thing is over 2 multiplied by a, which is 2. Now we need to obtain our solutions by typing this into a scientific calculator. So we're going to type the fraction on the right hand side into a calculator, and we'll type it in once with a plus where the plus or minus symbol is, and then with a minus where the plus or minus symbol is, and this should give us two solutions. So if we type the whole thing in with a plus, we're going to obtain a first solution of x equals negative 0.5 or negative a half. If we then go back and change the plus into a minus where that plus or minus symbol is, we're going to obtain a second solution of x equals negative 3. So our two solutions to this quadratic equation are x equals negative 0.5 or x equals negative 3. Most quadratic equations that we come across do have two distinct solutions. However, it is possible for a quadratic equation to have one repeated solution or even no solutions at all. Let's have a go at a second example. So this time we're going to solve 3x squared, add 8x, subtract 5 equals 0. Again, the first thing we need to do is label our values of a, b and c. So a is the x squared coefficient, which is 3, b is the x coefficient, which is 8, and c is the constant, which is negative 5. And it's really important to recognise that the constant is a negative number. We're going to approach this problem in exactly the same way as last time, the only difference being that negative value of c, whenever we substitute it into the quadratic formula, we're going to make sure that it's in brackets before we type it into our calculator. So let's get the quadratic formula ready. And again, we're going to pick up our values of a, b and c and substitute them into the formula. So we will have x equals negative b, which for us is negative 8, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which for us is 8 squared, subtract 4, multiplied by a, which is 3, multiplied by c, which is negative 5. And as we said before, the negative 5 is going to go in brackets. And the whole thing is over 2 multiplied by a, which is going to be 2 multiplied by 3 in this case. Just like in the last question, we're going to get our scientific calculator ready now, and we're going to type this into a calculator first with a plus where the plus or minus symbol is, and then with a subtract where the plus or minus symbol is. For this particular question, if we type this into a scientific calculator, it's likely that you'll get a solution in surd form first. So with a plus, our surd solution form will be negative 4 plus root 31 over 3. This is a perfectly valid solution. However, if you do want to have a decimal solution, you can use the surd to decimal button on your calculator to convert this into a decimal, and to 3 significant figures, this is an x solution of x equals negative 0.523. Similar to previous, we then go back and we put a subtract where that plus or minus symbol is, and again, this could give us a surd solution of negative 4 subtract root 31 over 3, or using the surd to decimal button on the calculator to convert to a decimal will give us x equals negative 3.20 to 3 significant figures. So similar to the previous question, we have two distinct solutions of x equals negative 0.523 or x equals negative 3.20 for this quadratic equation. Let's have a look at one final example for this video. So this time we're going to solve x squared, subtract 9x, subtract 1 equals 0. The first thing we need to do, as always, is find our values for a, b and c. This time we have no visible x squared coefficient, but remember in maths if we just write x squared it means that we have one lot of x squared. So our value of a is 1. Our value of b is the x coefficient, which is -9, and our value of c is the constant, which is -1. And similar to the previous question, we're going to make sure that whenever we substitute a negative number into the quadratic formula, we put it in brackets. So let's get our quadratic formula in front of us, and then we're going to substitute our values into it. So we're going to write down that x equals -b, which for us is going to be -9, which of course if you wanted to you could write as +9, plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is -9 squared, subtract 4 multiplied by a, which is 1, multiplied by c, which is -1, and the whole thing is over 2 multiplied by a, which is 1. We're now going to use our scientific calculator to obtain the solutions, so we'll type it in once with a plus where the plus or minus symbol is, and once with a minus where the plus or minus symbol is. And similar to the last question, when we type it in first time, we might end up with a third solution. So for this one we could have x equals 9 plus root 85 over 2. Of course, you could turn this into a decimal using the surd to decimal button on your calculator, which will give us a solution of x equals 9.12 to 3 significant figures. If we then go back and change that plus into a minus, where the plus or minus symbol is, we can have a third solution of 9 subtract root 85 over 2, or using the surd to decimal button, x equals -0.120 to 3 significant figures. So again, we have two distinct solutions of x equals 9.12 or x equals -0.120 to 3 significant figures. Thank you so much for watching this Now Maths video on using the quadratic formula. Please like this video if you found it helpful and subscribe for more help with your maths. See you next time.